Hi there, negative gearing. What's the good, the bad and the ugly about it? Well, stay tuned. I'll go over it with you in about 2 or 3 minutes. But I just want to share my story with you, if you like, a little bit, because it's quite relevant to the debate. I'm not going to get political. I come from strong Labor backgrounds. It's not how I necessarily see things these days. But I need to actually enter in, for the sake of those people who are wondering about how beneficial negative gearing is for starters, how to use it, because some people like it and some people don't. Usually most people don't understand it or understand how the best way to use it. Now, negative gearing came about in 1985, and it was basically brought in to help stimulate the construction industry. It was also part of the government strategy. Now, I grew up in a poor environment. I grew up in Risdonvale in Tasmania back in the 60s. Yep, I'm that old. But we grew up with wire fences and concrete, gravel driveways, wire fences, and we had curtains made out of sheets on the windows. So we grew up poor, and we bought things as and when we could afford it. But that was a Housing Commission estate. Quite a large suburb in Hobart, but it was a Housing Commission estate. Nowhere near as bad as some of the Housing Commission blocks of flats you'll see in the likes, I think it's Seven Hills in Sydney, and in the western side of Melbourne there, you'll see big high-rises. And I've been in those high-rises, and they're ghettos, and it's a horrible place to be. Lots of problems, and they become great problems for the government. Not great, but terrible problems for the government. In terms of the responsibility they have, the litigious nature of problems associated came out of there and where it was going to. So they realised back in the 70s that was causing them problems. So in the 80s they started changing things, and they brought in a few things to actually improve that. So the point I'm getting to is negative gearing was brought about to solve a problem for Australians, and it was also brought in to help normal everyday people like us Labor voters that we were, to help buy investment property and build a portfolio perhaps to help with our retirement, because as Keating worked out in the 80s, Australia's baby boomers weren't going to be able to self-fund, and the future generations wouldn't have access to the pensions as we're used to. So it brought this about to actually help and increase having people making sure people were independent in their retirement. And now we see some discussion, debate about taking it away and calling these people richies. Now, I've got to say to you, myself, even though I live in a lovely spot now, it's beautiful, I'm very grateful and happy, and that's because I've done some wise investing over the years and in a good position right now to do that for myself, but also to help other people. So negative gearing, it can be great. A basic strategy for it really is it's fantastic on new property, which is an ideal vehicle, new houses ideally, in the early stages of a portfolio. So it helps you bring that cash flow back to a manageable level. For those who say they don't like it, generally speaking, they're buying older properties which are full of problems, not always the wisest thing to do, and cash flow when you get down and dirty after tax is going to cause problems where people can't actually hold a number of those properties. They may be able to hold one or two, but unless you've got great cash flow, older property is going to be paying for you. So, and some of the legislation is heading towards that way, where they're encouraging people to build new, because the reason is that Australia doesn't have a housing affordability crisis. Sydney does to some degree. That's just Sydney doing what it always does, where Sydney and the rest of the country, generally median prices of houses will double every 7 to 10 years. But let's say it drags out to 15 years. Australian property is still in a strong position and going gangbusters. But we need to have more housing. So we don't have a housing affordability crisis, we have a housing shortage crisis. And you can still buy a 4-bedroom brand new house in the suburbs in Melbourne and even in Brisbane for under $400,000, believe it or not. So it's not unaffordable for most people in a reasonable situation to be able to afford to buy those properties to get their first home to live in, especially with the great government incentives. So as far as, does the government want to take responsibility back for housing Australia, or do they want to encourage people to take control of their future and their retirement years by investing wisely and getting 2, 3, 4, 5 investment properties, helping have affordable housing for those who need rental, and will always be those, or which way is it going to go? So you can't have it both ways. Hopefully that's a bit of a negative gearing in a nutshell for you. I'm going to put a post on next week a bit further to this, so sorry this is a bit long, but I need to explain the history and the benefits and where it's going to. So stay tuned for next week's, and I'll talk to you then. Cheers.